Welcome, everybody, to another edition. How's everybody doing on this Tuesday evening? Hello, Little Twisted. Roger. I'm glad everybody started tuning in. Kathy A is driving home. Well, Kathy, be safe, and we'll see you when you get home. Hello, Scott B. Kelly Joe, how are you doing this evening?
Doing good.
Good. So how was your weekend?
Had a good one.
Was it hot? Did you get any weather down there?
Oh, it was hot. We had humidity. It's always hot here.
You always get the weather, don't you?
Yeah.
So this evening, we got the one and only Josh Rutledge. Finally got him nailed down and got him scheduled, which I'm really excited. Man, this guy is fantastic. I've been wanting to have him on the show for quite some time with me filming everything. It was hard to communicate with some people, but let's go ahead and bring him on. Hello, Josh. How you doing today? Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. Like you said, it was a long time, but finally got it all worked out, and here we go.
Yeah. So introduce yourself and give us some background history on you, kind sir.
Sure. Josh Rutledge. I'm an investigator, a researcher. I have a LLC where I provide mentorship and spiritual life coach services for people called Mystic Mentor. But other than that, I'm just out there when I'm not working my day job, researching, doing field investigation for MUFON, and just overall interested in all of the phenomenon, not just UFOs, but all the phenomenon, how it relates to itself.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. What do you think, Kelly Joe? Are you excited? I am.
Oh, yeah.
So how did you get started with everything? Take us back to the first day, if you could.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've always been kind of a sci-fi guy, Star Trek, more than Star Wars. But here the last probably 15 or 20 years, my wife's a big Disney fan. And now that Disney owns Star Wars is in my house. So, but because of that kind of interest in sci-fi and such, when the X-Files first, hit the airwaves, back in the 90s, I was, glued to the screen every time it came on. Was very interested in the Phoenix Lights. I remember hearing about it. I didn't live in Arizona at the time. I lived in Kentucky, but I remember hearing about it on the news, and I was intrigued by everything about it. And then, really I would say UFO experiences up until like 3 or 4 years ago for me. I've had some paranormal experiences, some psychic experiences, things like that throughout my lifetime. But my first UFO sighting, and really what started me on this journey, happened about 3.5, 4 years ago.
Wow.
So, I mean, I had just started doing a podcast with a friend of mine called Fearscape Podcast. It's still out there. We don't do the show anymore, but all the episodes are out there if anyone wants to go listen. I guess it'll be out there indefinitely. That's the way the internet works.
Right.
But I had a dream, and in the dream, I was holding the hand of an entity. A craft hovered overhead, and it told me in that dream that I was a hybrid. Kind of came out of the dream, really felt like it wasn't a dream, like it was some sort of a remembrance or memory, maybe of a time when I was abducted. I have intentions to explore that dream more and what all it means, but I haven't been able to nail down the time or the funds to be able to do that yet. But that set me off, that and doing the podcast. Obviously, you have to do a lot of research when you have a podcast. Yes. So the research that I did for the podcast, as well as just my own research for my own interests, really kind of set the snowball rolling, so to speak. And now, it's about to take out a house. It's grown so big over the years. So
that's awesome. And what's really interesting is Kelly Joe is a dream interpreter, aren't you, Kelly?
Yes, I can interpret dreams.
So if you ever want to talk to her, she's fascinating. And I know you have abilities too. So yes. Go ahead, Kelly.
Well, I think that it's neat that you you're aware anyway, and it's neat that you had so many experiences. And your dream of holding an entity, you really were picked up.
Yeah. Oh no,
that wasn't a dream.
I know that that's the case. I just haven't gone. My intention is to do some quantum hypnosis,
Wow.
the Dolores Cannon type hypnosis, and see what else I can uncover. It's just a matter of having time that I can dedicate in my house. I'm a dad. I've got 2 kids, and my wife and my dog and my cats, and so it's like I need time that I can dedicate that I know I won't be disturbed. Which might have to be at 2 o'clock in the morning because everybody's asleep. But yeah, I have no doubt that it was not a dream, but it was a remembrance of a memory, and I also think it was timed. Like I think that I was supposed. I mean, synchronicities outstanding. Coincidences are never coincidences. The fact that I began recording for a paranormal podcast 1 week after having the dream, it just really seems more than just coincidental that I would have the dream then, right? So
Yes.
it seems more like it was planned for that to occur, knowing that then my own want and desire to understand more about the dream, coupled with my want and desire to grow the podcast, I would be on a similar path, and the two would feed off of each other.
Yes. Absolutely.
Little Twist is asking you for iHeartRadio, Apple, and Google. Do you have Rh negative blood?
I do not.
As an investigator, you know how Rh negative and abductees usually coincide somehow. And I don't know why it's so fascinating to see that with Rh negative. What's your thoughts on it?
I mean, it's a really just from a biological perspective, it's a really interesting phenomenon that only about 2% of the population actually have the blood type. So it really makes you wonder, from a biological perspective, where where the diversion or the offshoot in the blood type happened, how far back in history that occurred, and if it could ever be tracked back to how far back in history it occurred. Wonder what else we might find that also occurred at that same time. Does it go all the way back to the beginning of the Egyptian Empire or whatever? It just really fascinates me how far back that diversion in Rh negative or other blood types that are also rare might exist. As far as the situation where you have abductees that are many abductees are also Rh negative, I think that's interesting too, given the fact that only 2% of the population have Rh negative blood. The high preponderance of Rh negative blood type holders in abductees is probably something worth investigating beyond just anecdotal information or anecdotal data.
I do. Now, I have to ask this question because I've been dying to ask you. I wanted to ask you in the green room. However, do you believe in the ancient alien theory?
Yes and no. So I do think that from a age of our species perspective, we are young. Humans have only been really around and, let's say, doing smart things for like 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 years. So I think that given the age of the Earth, around 4.5 billion years old, our existence on the planet is a blip, right? It's a second in time. And so just like you have to take kind of a logical approach for the potential existence for life elsewhere in the universe, I think you also have to take that same logical approach for the existence of intelligent life on our planet. Are we the first rise of intelligent civilization on the planet? I don't think so. But would I go as far as to say that intelligent life helped us start our evolutionary process on the planet? I don't know, because you would think that if that were the case, maybe we wouldn't be so destructive with our environment and each other. If a higher evolutionary path, let's say entity or being or species, was guiding us in the early days, would we have warred so much? Would we have been so destructive in our early days to the point where we are still very destructive today?
Very interesting. Kelly, what's your thoughts on that?
I agree, but I read a book a long time ago that was like two separate, the ones that were helped by the aliens, then the ones that just naturally evolved. There was like two subgroups. And I thought that was fascinating.
It is. It is fascinating. You know, I think a lot about it, but yeah, it's just interesting, and I do. And when he said the evolution or humans as a blip, that really made me stop and think, because he's actually right about that, ladies and gentlemen. If you stop and think about the time frame as the origins of Earth, right, as being billions of years old compared to, 40,000, 50,000 years of Homo sapiens or whatever. Yeah, you're actually right, Josh. Totally agree with that.
Are you going to write a book?
What's that?
Are you going to write a book?
No, I just share because I don't think I have any new information or new ideas to date. I mean, most of the information that I have, somebody else has already written it down. One of the things that I have going for me, though, is that I have a eidetic memory. And so I can read a book, watch a documentary, listen to a podcast. And if there's an interesting fact or factoid that's shared, I just store it away photographically. And so I can easily kind of call it up, remember what the context was that it was related to. So all the information that I'm going to talk about here, some of the information I have, or if we get into discussion, let's say is my own thoughts. I don't think anybody else has talked about some of this stuff, but like the age of the earth and things like that, that's pretty, I think, common knowledge.
Yes.
And there's no point in me putting that in another book that somebody else can read.
But your experiences themselves are very intriguing.
I mean, I think I sometimes gloss over how impactful my experience, because I have my own podcast where I seek to give people an audience who have had experiences. I sometimes forget that my own experiences may also be impactful for someone else. And so thank you for saying that.
A little Twisted wants to know, do you feel like you astral project when you dream, Josh?
Yes. I actually, so I think, and I dabble in channeling and dowsing rod stuff. And I've had some conversations with some entities that have given me some information. Now, this stuff might be worth putting in a book. But that when you dream at night, your energy body, your soul, leaves your physical body while it goes through its biological process of repairing itself and creating new cells and everything else and getting ready for the next day of physical activity. So your soul leaves, and what it actually does is it goes back to your collective soul, your higher self, your higher collective consciousness. And so because that collective consciousness exists in a realm or in a dimension where linear time does not exist, all of your lives that you are experiencing are all able to collect and go and meet, and you're basically uploading everything that you learned from the day, right? Every situation you encountered, every stumble and fall, and every praise and success gets uploaded to your higher consciousness. And because all of your lives and all of your soul fragments, if you will, are all meeting with the higher consciousness at the same time, performing the same activity. So that sometimes when you dream and you see yourself doing things that you've never done before, or in situations that you've never been in before, it's because you're glimpsing an aspect of that other life, as it and yourself are both uploading your experiences to the higher self. And then that's why sometimes you'll wake up and you'll feel like you receive a download, and all of a sudden some problem that you've been facing, you know the solution to it, and it's because those other experiences that your other selves are having have been uploaded to the higher self. That higher self is able to then pass that information back down to your soul fragment so that you can go off and do whatever you need to do in order to overcome that challenge. Probably a really big answer to a to a small question. Oh, I lost audio.
No, you didn't. I was
Okay.
muted because I sneezed earlier. No, a lot of people like that answer, and they're saying that because it explains a lot of things, and also what people are resonating with, right? When you're talking like that and explaining things. And Kelly's nodding her head too, right, Kelly?
Yes, absolutely. Totally agree with the fragmented part of your soul that it comes together at nighttime.
Mm-hmm.
Totally agree with that. Because there's different parallels, and we tap into those to get the information we need.
Mm-hmm.
Also, can go back and forth to the timeline continuum, in and out,
Right.
past, present, and future.
Because all of time, all of your experience, all of your existences, let's say, that ever will happen, are happening now, or have happened, are all occurring in, I'm not trying to say time, are all occurring in the same instance at that higher realm where higher self lives. And so where your higher self exists, it's like, or if you ever seen the movie, and I don't want to make the direct connection, but you ever seen the movie The Matrix, where
Yeah.
I think it's the second one, where Neo finds his way to the architect, and the architect has all these screens of all these things that are going on. That's kind of what your higher self has going on. Your higher self can see all of its soul fragments and the experiences that they're having all at the same. And again, I don't want to use time, but they're all occurring simultaneously, let's say.
Right.
And so it can easily send one information, pull information from one to provide it to another, so on and so forth.
A little twist is asking, it's an interesting perspective. Is that the knowledge you got from experience or from the beings?
It's from the beings. And it's a real, that whole connection and conversation with beings is really an interesting situation, occurrence. I don't know the right word to use. When I first started out, where I would have these conversations, this was shortly after I had my UFO experience in May of 2020. I would just wake up one morning, be taking a shower to get ready for work, and just kind of have my eyes closed with the water hitting me, and I would see these star fields in my vision, and then it would just start like shooting by, like I was going to warp, in Star Trek. And then all of a sudden, I would have these kind of data downloads, and as I was driving to work, I would put my phone on my mount on my dash and turn the video camera on and just spew all of this just theories and information and everything that was coming to me, that I guess had come to me at that point. It has since evolved from that to being, now it's almost like a switch that I can turn on or flip in my mind, although I don't think it's in my mind, but and then I can have a conversation with these higher beings, sometimes it's easier for me from a validation perspective, and I'll use dowsing rods when cross for yes and uncross for no. But it's only because I'm a very analytical person, and so it's hard for me to accept that the situation that I'm having is real. And so sometimes by having a physical tool, tarot cards, things like that, a pendulum, it's easier for me to accept the information that's coming through.
I totally agree on that. I read an article the other day, and that there's 13 dimensions we know about, right? And that, but now the government has leaked out, and you know how they do that. There's up to 17 dimensions,
Mm-hmm.
and that there's beings coming out of these dimensions because they fragmented electrons from neutrons with some kind of whatever. And I don't know if you read that or heard about that lately.
I have not seen the article. I had heard that there were more than 13 dimensions. I think I was watching a documentary about quantum physics, and somewhere in that documentary they were talking about there being more than 13 dimensions. But I've talked to via that mechanism I just spoke about. I've talked to some higher dimensional beings before. And the way they explain the way that other dimensions can interact with our dimension is the same way that we in our dimension can interact with lower dimensions for us. And so, you think about a shadow cast by a person, right? That's two-dimensional, and so we can see the shadow, but we can't really interact with the shadow. We can put our hand and make our own shadow, and our shadow can touch its shadow, but we don't really feel the sensation of touch. And so when these higher dimensions interact with our dimensions, it's almost like that. It's more like a shadow interaction than they're actually here in our physical plane.
Yeah, a little twist. It said 17. Yes, they tore a hole in one of the dimensions or something. I wish I would have saved the article, but yeah, because I didn't know. You know how people put articles out that are not true. But I was talking to somebody else about it, and they thought it was the real deal as well. So that's why I want to get your confirmation on it too. Kelly, what's your take on it?
Yes, I believe that there's more than there's myriad of dimensions. I think there's more than 13,
There's probably more than 17.
Yeah,
probably is. Yeah.
And I think it's infinite.
Mm-hmm.
And there's different energies from different parallels that come in and out.
It makes you wonder, quantum physics, right? And we're just now starting to dabble into that. And was it Google that came out with the quantum computer? Is that, or who came out with that, Josh? I know you would probably know more about that than I would.
I think IBM might have been the first company.
No, you're right. IBM did. That is correct.
Quantum computer.
IBM, since you said that, yes. And they're already saying that they already have technology that is exceeding that. So that's interesting because they have to keep that. I forgot how many degrees below Celsius.
Yeah.
Height to make it run.
Because of the power that it takes to run the computations. Yeah.
That is just that. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Josh. I'm sorry.
I was going to say what's really interesting about all of that is that even with quantum computing, it still doesn't compare to the capacity that the human brain has. And yet we don't need to be kept at minus, whatever degrees below Celsius. So
you're right.
Isn't that the truth?
But one of my heroes has always been Einstein, EMC squared.
Yeah. That's my poster back there.
Yeah, I see it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is.
The theory of relativity.
Yeah, not really a theory anymore, but we'll still call it that. So
But can you imagine if Einstein was alive today? Where would we be? What technology would he uncover? What mathematics would he solve? I mean, I wonder about that. Have you ever thought about that, Josh?
I mean, I haven't really, I guess, thought about it before, but I'm thinking about it now, and it really makes me really wonder if, do you all believe that everyone is here for a specific purpose or goal?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe Einstein's purpose was the theory of relativity. And so if he were still here today, would he exceed that? Or would he just further expand upon the theory of relativity?
Oh,
I think he would exceed it because he had different workings.
Yeah. If we were going to have a situation where we could bring great minds back from the dead and have them work on today's science, I would like to have Stephen Hawking, Albert Einstein, and Nikola Tesla in a room together.
That was going to be my top 3.
Absolutely. Tesla was really neat.
I still want the 70 trunks from the government that they never did. They confiscated allegedly. Well, I have to say allegedly because we're on the air, because we're being monitored. But look at Stephen Hawking's. I mean, they made fun of him, right? And they downgraded him, and all of his papers he published, they laughed at him. And it's not coming true. Go ahead, Kelly. I'm sorry for over talking.
Tesla also had a time machine that he was working on.
Well, he was also working on wireless energy, which I think a lot of people believe that's what the Great Pyramid in Egypt was originally constructed for.
Yep. Absolutely.
His design for his tower in New Jersey, I believe it was, was based on the design from the Great Pyramid.
Well, there's a picture of him sitting in his yard or wherever with the coil and the cage and all that, and there's all the electricity. That just gives me chills. It's just really cool. And he wanted to have free electric for everybody.
Yeah.
And they shut him down.
But I mean, when you think about and you break down what Wi-Fi is, what cellular service is, it is wireless energy. It is. It's just low yield, right? It's not enough to power anything, but it is wireless energy. So we have the technology for wireless energy. We just, for whatever reason, no one has explored how do you make it high yield? How do you Willy Wonka that thing? How do you turn that chocolate bar into bits of whatever and broadcast it across the room?
Right.
Nobody's played with that at all.
I watched Willy Wonka when I was a kid over and over. My parents made me watch it over and over. That was funny. You said like that, but yeah. But no, I mean, you're absolutely right, and it's so true. And I mean, today we'll never have wireless energy, because of the billions and trillions of dollars that these companies make, right? I mean, you look at the solar panels. I mean, I know somebody in the family that they're paying $40,000 for solar panels, and they pay the solar panels per month, but then they sell back the electricity companies to sell back to the customers into the grid. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, you're still paying what you're paying for your electricity, right? Then your solar panels are already going to be out of date within 3 to 7 years already because of the technology. So is it really?
In the nature of technology, right? I mean, I always quote Moore's Law, which I think is obsolete now because, the smallest microchip is like thinner than a human hair. But, Moore's Law for a long time was kind of the rule, which was technology would double on itself every 2 years and also reduce in size by half every 2 years. So, and that was kind of the rule for microchips, but I think it was also kind of a general rule for technology is that we would see an increase in technology a doubling effect in technology capability and effects and so on and so forth over 2 years. Moore's law, though, because the microchip is now so small, may not apply anymore. But I think that the sentiment holds true, is that we continue to grow leaps and bounds in our technological footprint. But I think it was Einstein, and I'm going to paraphrase here, that said, when your technology exceeds your humanity, you're in for suffering. Right? And it's a horrible paraphrase, but it's the idea that we continue to grow technologically, but we really haven't evolved in our spiritual, not religious, but spiritual, emotional aspects of our race in a long time. And you can see that in the countless numbers of wars that we have and the way that we just generally treat each other. Why would an alien species come and land on the White House lawn and say, hey, we're here, when we can't even get along with ourselves? How are we going to treat an alien species? So
I'm glad you brought that up. So my question unto you is, where do you think that humans, right, and us got the technology from?
I mean, I think the human brain is very capable of inventing magnificent things. But do I think that we sometimes get inspiration from outside sources? Sure. I mean, the number of people that I've met since I started looking into the UFO phenomenon who say nightly, daily, whatever, that they get downloads and they wake up and they have these images in their mind for some zero gravity device that they can't possibly create or construct. So it's almost like there's a flow of knowledge or wisdom that is targeting our minds all the time, but it has to hit the right mind to be able to then be converted into actionable technology that we can make use of. And that's where I think the brain's capacity for learning, for capacity for processing complex information, and the brain's capacity for imagination help take those things that are being kind of fed to us on a daily, nightly basis and convert them into things that we get to realize and experience.
Polly Rotterman says hello, Josh.
Hi, Polly.
Do you think we got any technology from the Roswell crash?
It's possible. I mean, I would not discount our ability to, again, the human mind is a fascinating machine. And its ability to, work out problems and come up with solutions. You could take 10 engineers and put them into a room that they've never been into before with technology they've never seen before and say, you can't leave the room until you figure out how it works. And they're going to figure out how it works because the brain has the capacity to do so. So do I think we could reverse engineer alien tech? Sure. If we had enough time, patience, and provided that the fuel that the alien tech uses is available on Earth.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we did it with some space shuttle missions, didn't we? To get them back home. So, yeah.
Yep.
Kelly, what's your thoughts?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I agree with you that you have to have the right energy to connect to the energy that's being given to make the advancements. You have to have the right mix of the mojo that you need to do it.
I think, though, and this is the unfortunate part, right? Is that I think it takes a person who's, let's say, to use modern day terminology, is vibrating at a high enough level
to
receive the information and be able to process it, understand it, and then have a direction forward to utilize it.
Right.
But what that doesn't preclude is people who are lower vibrating taking this information that's now been received and actioned and using it for nefarious activity. So,
right.
The
For
low
evil.
vibrational people can't receive it, but they can still manipulate or, make use of the technology once it's in place.
Right.
No, I totally
They have to have guardrails so that some of this stuff can't be turned into something horrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and I think that's why we really haven't come up with any new revolutionary, energy concept in 50 years, because probably the next revolutionary energy concept could also be used to kill people.
Right.
And so, again, until we can demonstrate that we're ready to exist at that higher level of existence and interact with entities that are, significantly in some cases different from us, and not, want to destroy them or whatever, then I don't think we're ready to have whatever that next level energy solution is.
Agreed. Blow everything up. No, thank you.
No, and Kelly and I, we talk about that too, right? In the spiritual realm, is that when we vibrate that high, we never lower our vibrations. We try to bring people up to our level, but we never go down to their level. So I totally agree with that concept. Yes, absolutely.
But you gotta be really careful there, because you can't make someone vibrate at a higher level, right?
No, you cannot.
And try as you may, all you'll end up doing is lowering your own vibration in doing so.
That is correct.
Right. Absolutely.
But I just wondered, I always like to ask that question about technology, because it's interesting to see us go from the wild, wild west into certain events in history that has been noted with alien, supposedly spacecraft, and then it's a whatever that never did turn out to be what it was. And then we see technological differences and changes. And I do agree with the human mind as well. So yes, I totally agree with that. I always like to get people's opinions and answers.
You think about, though, talking about going from our different stages of technological advancement. I think that with the Industrial Revolution, for the first time, instead of technology inventions being for the sole purposes of waging war, which is all of our technology advancements up until probably the Industrial Revolution fell into that category, it was now, let's figure out a technology advances, to make more money. And so our focus, I think, shifted from wage war to greed. And then, of course, that resulted in waging, more wars as well. But I think we have to get to the point where we see the next evolution of technology advancement for love, for happiness, for gratitude, for the willingness to help everyone, regardless of their, economic stature or whatever the case may be. And that's what I think, in my opinion, the human race is ready for. The next evolutionary step. It won't be a physical evolution. It'll be an emotional intelligence evolution that takes us to the next level.
I agree with that. And and I can actually see your valid point and why you make that. Kelly, what's your opinion on that?
Well, I always thought that we'd be more evolved by now. I thought we'd have better clothing, better housing. I thought we'd all be like Star Trek by now. Hovercrafts, doing different kinds of gardening and
yeah, we thought we were going to be the Jetsons, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I thought we'd have by now. And I'm so bummed.
We really did. I mean, I remember
Yep.
watching the Jetsons being a kid, and we were told that's going to be the future. That's going to be the future. However, like Josh said, and a lot of people were making comments about Star Trek. It's amazing how that stuff back then has come true.
Right.
And then you talk to some people in the government off the air or off the record, and it's like, whatever you've seen, we've already done it and been there.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that is reality. But they're slowly disclosing this stuff in movies. Like Independence Day with Will Smith. That was scrubbed 19 times by the government before it was released. Why? Why was the government involved in that movie? So go figure.
And look at the tricorders and the communication devices and the flip phones on Star Trek. We have all that now.
Yep.
Except for the teleportation machine.
No, I never
I don't
forget.
know. Right now, I would be happy with the little hypo sprays to get shots and stuff. That seems
Yeah.
a lot better than the current method.
Right.
Right.
Eventually, we probably will have that. Hopefully.
John says, as long as these people that are in control don't get removed, nothing will change unless divine intervention changes. And once again, it's all about funds and money. And I think the last time somebody told me high in the Air Force, they're 72 years advanced than us. 72 years. And when we were growing up, it was 35 years. I mean, look at the year gap now.
Mm-hmm.
I never forget when I first got my iPad, Josh, somebody in the military that was retired said, "Where'd you get that? And what is that?" And I'm like, "It's an iPad." They're like, "We had that in the service, but it didn't have that funny looking logo on the back of it." I mean, go figure, right? So technology, yes, they do have it.
Yep.
Now, what's his name? The president says we do not control weather. We know that's not true.
Yeah, I don't really have any comments on that one. Sorry, I don't do a lot of research into the NASA cloud seeding and stuff. That's a little outside. I mean, to people who do it, more power to you. That's just a little outside of my level of interest.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Kelly, what's your thoughts about stuff like that?
About the
government controlling weather, and
I know that they can cloud seed to make it rain. I know that.
Yeah.
They used to do that for crops. So
yeah, there's a 1980 something, maybe early 90s, like a local TV channel, like maybe CNN or something. I can't remember now, but it's Jeremy Clarkson is the narrator for the segment, and it's talking about NASA creating clouds for rain for nearby crop fields and stuff. So I mean, I know that that's possible. That's been publicly announced. Whether or not NASA or anybody else could create a Category 5 hurricane, I don't know. That seems a bit extreme.
All right, I got to ask, what about Hawaii and all the blue roofs that didn't get burned? What's your opinion on that?
I know I've seen a lot of people who are displaced. Are you saying that there wasn't a fire?
Do you think that was a laser that caused that?
No, I think it was a fire. I mean, forest fires are real. A lot of times they're set on purpose. Sometimes nature sets them for us.
Right.
I don't think it was a space laser. No.
Right. Kelly, you have any more questions or anything?
What was your most interesting sighting with UFOs?
Oh, probably the first one that I had in May of 2020. I was in my backyard in Kentucky.
Where at in Kentucky, Josh? Because I live right outside Louisville.
It was in Goshen.
Are you serious? I live in Oldham County.
Yeah. Where 1792 comes out on 42?
Yeah, I sure do.
Right over there.
Did you go to Oldham County High or anything?
No, I grew up in Louisville. I moved to Goshen for my kids to go to school in Oldham County.
Okay. Okay. I graduated in 93.
I graduated from Butler in 97.
Oh, okay. Yes. I know a few people went to Butler. I don't know what year it was. Small world, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Brad from your channel says, Josh, you're awesome.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for that, Brad.
All right. Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. You kept saying,
No, it's
Louisville,
okay.
and I was
Yeah,
like,
it was just, small world. I got a ring into my left ear now. It's usually an indication of something. So we'll see where this goes. So the, anyways, I was in my backyard. It was like maybe midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. My friend Stefan was with me. And in front of us, moving from south to north towards the Ohio River, was a light that would, like, it was low on the horizon, maybe no more than 20 degrees off the horizon, and it really felt close. I mean, it didn't feel like a satellite or something. Plus, it was 1 o'clock in the morning in May. It wouldn't have been a satellite anyway. But my friend Stefan had a green laser pointer, and he would signal in front of it because we weren't entirely sure if it was an airplane or not. And so he would signal in front of it. And every time he did, what I would describe as like a lighthouse type effect, the light would get really bright, like it was coming around. It would get really bright, and then it would go dim again. And it did that every single time he would signal in front of it. And then we watched it. It didn't really shift its track. It stayed its course, just kind of interacting with us in that way. We stood there waiting in that general area to see if it would come back. My friend Stefan happened to turn and look over his shoulder. And above an oak tree, so maybe 60, 70 feet up, was a huge white light that was at least the size of a full moon at full, zenith in the sky. So if you were to hold up like a quarter or a $50 to the sky, that's about how big it was in the sky.
wow.
Solid white, sitting there above the trees. I have no idea how long it was there. He's like, look at that. I spun around. We both watched it for like 10, 15 seconds. And then it just shot straight up in the sky, leaving a cone of white below it.
Wow.
And then that dissipated.
That is crazy.
By far my number one. And I mean, that was the UFO experience that really, really got me interested in the topic. And I've had others since then, but that's the one that I tell everybody about.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. When I was in Arizona, I saw some interesting stuff that would blow your mind, but that is spectacular.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm in Arizona now. I moved here 2.5 years ago.
There's all kinds of stuff in Arizona at night.
And I now am a field investigator for MUFON, so I get to see some stuff, and I've seen my own stuff. In fact, we're having a little bit of a flap right now with some interesting lights that are happening well after sunset in the west. So
Big Dipper.
Yep.
Okay. Let me tell you what I experienced when I was out there. It's not funny. I'm sitting out there.
I'm not laughing. I'm just laughing because it's like, coincidence what we talked about in the beginning.
Yes.
So yeah.
And I was like, look, it's a Big Dipper. And I'm like, something's wrong. They're like, what? I'm like, the airplanes are disappearing. And they're like, I don't think that's airplanes. And I'm like, they're disappearing. They're like, what are you talking about? And I was like, watch. And they would appear and they would go so far. And they're like, Grizzly, there's mountains. I'm like, no, there's no mountains right there. I was like, the mountains are over there about 45 degrees, 50 degrees that way. I was like, I know, because I know what I'm seeing. And we kept, and they're like, you are, they're like, there's something, like, what is going on? So I called some other people. They're like, you're seeing it too. And they were like 80 or 90 miles away from where I was at. And they were witnessing the same thing. So is that what you're seeing or getting reports on?
It is. They kind of come in, they get really bright, and then they disappear. And I've got a Psionics night vision camera, So when they disappear from the naked eye, they're still visible on the psionics for maybe 2 or 3 more seconds, and they disappear completely off the psionics as well. So no IR light, no UV light, nothing.
Wow. Okay. Okay. And Brad wants to know, have you tried bait like IR LEDs?
I have not. I've got a green laser pointer that I've tried before. I do have an IR flashlight. Unfortunately, it's a matter of distance. Like even a green laser pointer has a max range of about a mile. So if these things are really far out there, I don't know if they would see. I would have to get almost like a mag light or a spotlight IR light. Brad, if you know of any place I can get something like that, leave a comment on the channel or hit me up.
Now, I can tell you this, Josh, people from Kentucky was witnessing the same thing when I was out in Arizona about the Big Dipper, because I thought I was going crazy. And the person I was with kept saying there was mountains. I was like, there is no mountains over there. I'm telling you, there's no mountains. So, yeah. And the next day when we got up, we looked, and he was like, look. And he was like, there is no mountains. I try to tell you. So, yeah, that was pretty incredible. And then about south from there, I saw something, and it was weird. It looked like two big rectangles side by side, and they were flashing white. And it would go, whoa,
Wow.
whoa, and it went across the sky really slow, and it didn't have any aircraft or any markings or any red lights, white lights, flashing lights, or anything.
Wow.
And it went halfway across the sky, and it just faded out and never came back. Have you ever heard anything like that?
I have not. Well, maybe. I had a camera set up at a friend's house, looking towards like the northeast, recording 24/7, and it died. Like he called me one day. He's like, "Your camera's not working anymore." So I went and got it, brought it home, tried to figure out what's going on. It wouldn't power up. I plugged it into to the wall because it was plugged into a battery unit. It wouldn't power up at all. Had an onboard SD card. So I pulled the SD card, went to the last recording that it made, and it tracked something similar moving across the sky early morning in April. And then right around it gets around level with the camera, it flashes. And that was the last thing the camera recorded.
Wow.
Now, I zoomed in on it, and you can clearly see that it's two distinct things with some sort of a gap or something in the middle.
Yeah, there was a gap in the middle.
And it was like, if I think of let's think about a domino, with the black line in the middle.
Yeah. Right.
But tilt it like this, but flying like this is what it kind of looks like.
Right. To me, it reminded me of something like Star Wars. It was really weird because I drew a picture on one of my podcasts. It was like, well, what did it look like? I was like, two big rectangles, but they were side by side with the gap. So I drew a picture of it. A little twisted says, Elena, is it Dannon? Says the bad grays have left Earth. What are your thoughts, Josh?
I don't know that I have any thoughts in particular. I would just say that I think that sometimes we are trying to think how to say this. It doesn't offend anybody. Just because we are both good and bad doesn't mean that there has to be a species that is both good and bad. I think that there are some species that are indifferent to us, and so we may perceive that as being bad, that they just don't care about us because we're inconsequential. But I don't know about people, entities that have left, or if there are truly really bad, negative, want to do us harm entities out there.
Nicole asked, do you think that if people are abducted, can see the UFO and crafts more than other people?
I think that once you've had any type of experience that causes you to question the nature of your reality, you're more prone to seeing anomalous activities, whether that be ghosts, cryptids, Bigfoot, whatever the case may be, you've had something that's altered the way you perceive and think about your reality. And because of that, you're more likely to see other things that are always there and have always been there, but now you're just tuned in to see them.
More open. Yes,
Wow.
absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that too. A little twisted, interesting perspective. Thank you very much, Josh. So yeah, Kelly, any last questions before we wrap up? That hour went by so fast.
No,
It did.
thank you, Josh. It was great.
Yeah, we definitely got to have you back because I've got like 1,000 more different questions about cryptids, Bigfoot, more about UFO, especially about MUFON. I'm intrigued about MUFON. I really am. It's interesting.
We didn't even get into talking about Gene Roddenberry and the Council of Nine.
I know, right? We
Well,
haven't.
I thought we were going to go there when we started talking about Star Trek, but we just went past it.
You'll have to come back.
Yeah,
Yes,
for sure.
I'll definitely get you scheduled. And also, Josh, where can people find you and follow you and everything?
Sure. On YouTube and all the socials, it's My Mystic Mentor is the handle. On YouTube, actually, I think it's Mystic Journeys with an S. The handle is Mystic Journeys 44 if you type it in that way. But if you just look up Mystic Journeys, it should come up with the podcast and all the stuff that I do and dowsing rods and pendulums and all kinds of other stuff. So I'm not afraid to really get into and investigate any aspect of the phenomenon. So.
Awesome. What do you think, Kelly?
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you both for having me.
Coast to coast, around the world. Everybody, we'll catch you on tomorrow's shows. Take care and Godspeed, everybody. Bye-bye. Good night.